guys, so I think we should get alright guys, so I think we should get started now. Well, sound check, let me just be sure. Can anyone hear me? If you can hear me, just type in the chat box, say yes or no if you can hear me, and if you can also see my screen. Okay, what of wisdom, is he still here? What I saw him the other time. Ah, well, regardless, we are moving forward. Sorry, I have a little bit of kappa, so if you don't mind. So we are going to be starting with design principles. In the next 45 minutes or even less, we should be done, because I expect that by now everybody should have already watched the two videos I sent on elements of design and principles of design. So this class should just be like a what's it called now? Should just be like a revision class. Kelechi, are you on this call? I'm not sure I can see you from this side. Okay. I'm still trying to sort out Tomiwa's issue. He said he's unable to join. I don't know why. But I don't think there's a way to directly add someone from here. There's no share button. There's no share button. Whew. I really don't know how to. So let's continue. So as I said, I expect that everybody would have gone over those ones. Gone over those ones. So design principles. What are design principles? First of all, I am not someone that is very big on definitions. I am more of practicals, so I would like to focus on what is actually important and relevant. But generally, principles are, should I say, like rules that guide something. They are most times principles are usually unwritten rules. So it's not as if they are written down somewhere, but they are the things that guide people's behavior. They are the things that guide people's choices and actions in certain situations. So now when it comes to design, there is there are just some underlying foundations that, or should I say principles that guide every designer. There are some foundations that guide every designer, and those are what determine what makes a good design. Although yeah, there are people that say, you break the rules and do something out of the box and all those things, but the thing is, before you can even think of breaking the rule, you have to understand the rule, understand its provisions, understand why things are. So it's when you understand the rules and why they're there that you can break them in a way that makes sense. So let's proceed. So I always tell my students that design isn't just how something looks, it's how it works, the overall of how it works. So design is more of functionality than aesthetics. Design is under visual communication. And when we talk about visual communication, the communication aspect is very important. But then design is a kind of communication that appeals to the eyes, visual. So you are communicating the sense organ that you are relating with is the sense of sight, is the eye. And that aside, that does not mean that design applies only to the eye, because design can also evoke emotions. Yeah, but the sense organ that the design is interacting primarily with is the organ of sight. So having known that, you see that design is not just about looks. So sometimes you see some people, they go ahead to create some designs, they make it really really beautiful and catchy, but in the end they end up not communicating what was the initial intention of the design. So they end up creating something that it's fine but it doesn't work. You know, in advertising there's something we talk about, creativity versus functionality. So an ad, an advertisement can be very creative, you know, catch people's attention, make them say wow, and you know, be very memorable. But then does that ad help the owners to sell? Does it help them achieve their objectives? If it doesn't, then some people say it's just creative but it's not functional. Some people say that if it's not functional, then it's not creative. So that's the same thing with design. Don't let us go deep into so much of big grammar. Yeah, but what we are talking about now is design has a functional purpose, and what the major functional purpose of design is to communicate. Every design communicates, and that's where we draw a line between design and art. Design is functional, art is just expression. That is why when you look at all this piece of art, you know, everybody interprets them differently. So someone can look at that piece of art and say, ah wow, this thing is telling, is evoking a emotion of pity, kine kine kine. And then another person looks at it and say, wow, it's showing confidence. And that's just art for you. Art ministers or art speaks to people in different ways. But design should be consistent. The way the person A sees design is the same way that person B should see it. The way person A perceives a certain design is the same way that person B should perceive it. So that is why we say design is not just about looks, it's function, it's how something works. Now, moving on, what does a great design look like? So we have an example of something there. I think it's a hand wash. I don't know. But what does great design look like? So before we can answer that question, we have to consider some principles to see how they work in design or how they interact in design. If at any point you can't hear me, please let me know. Either you can't hear me or you cannot see my screen. So the first principle, let me just be sure. Can you see my screen? Just type if you can, so that I'll be sure before we move on. Alright. So the first principle of design is that we're going to be considering is balance. Now balance refers to how everything ties down in that design, how everything interacts, how everything has to do with arrangements here. But from the visual you are seeing on your screen now, you see that we have different elements. They are not the same elements, but they are balanced. The circle is balanced with the square or the rectangle. None is heavier than the other. And this brings me to a concept I would like to explain, which is visual weight. when you look at a design, you can tell which part of that design is heavy and which part is light. That's what is called visual weight, and we're going to practicalize it now. So look at the screen now. You see that, try to divide the screen into two sections. Try to divide the screen into two sections. So we are going to have, on the left part we have just that balance as the only item there, and on the right part we have the weighing balance. Yeah. Now if you are to be asked which of these two parts, the left part and the right part, which part is heavier, by heavier I mean which part has more elements and things like that, which one do you think, or which one, by looking at it you can tell that okay, this side is visually heavier than the other side? So can you type so that we can see if you get the concept of visual weight? Is it the left part that has only the text balance, or the right part that has the illustration? Which one is visually heavier? Yeah, thank you. So that's the right side. So that's what we mean by visual weight. When you try that out with so many other things, you can now understand the concept of balance. You can now know which part of a design is heavier than the other. Now when it comes to balance, the weight is meant to be equally spread, to be spread out equally on all sides of the design. So now elements on a page carry visual weights. This weight can be due to form, size, color, and texture. So elements on a page carry different visual weights. What's that? Okay, I think you mistakenly unmuted yourself, Grace. So as I was saying, talking about visual weight. Now the things that contribute to visual weight can either be one of it can be due to form. Now I'm sure if you watch the videos I sent to you, you must understand what I mean by form. Now form is, or let me just give you an example. When you look at a circle, it's a plane shape, right? It's in is it 2D, or yeah, I think it's in 2D. But then when you look at a sphere, you can say it's in 3D. That's an example of form. Another one is when you look at square in 2D, and when you look at cube, it's in 3D. So now the use of form can be used to depict visual weight. Then we can also use size, so something being bigger than the other can depict visual weight. We can use color. A color that is heavier than the other can depict visual weight. We can use texture. Oh wow, so I don't have a pointer yet. Nice. So we can use texture to depict visual weight. All these things are things I'm going to explain when we come to elements of design. So now under visual weight, we have two types of visual weight. We have balance. Under balance, we have two types. We have the asymmetrical, and we have the symmetrical. Let me start explaining with the symmetrical. It will help you understand the asymmetrical better. Now we'll talk about symmetrical balance. It basically means that once you divide the design into 2, both sides have equal weights. Both sides have equal visual weight. In essence, what is here is almost the same in terms of its weight to what's on the right side. Let me take that again. When you divide the design into 2, what you have on the left side carries equal weight as what you have on the right side. So now look at this Proud Mary. This is a movie poster. Look at this Proud Mary now. When you look at it, you can see that we have, when you divide it into 2, you see that we have almost the same size of stuff here, elements here rather, as we have on this side, even though they are not exactly the same. For instance, we have this lady holding this gun here, but we don't have such here. They are not the same, but in terms of the weight they carry, we have is what we have here that we have here. The same when we divide this text into 2, we have this and we have this, and we divide this place, we have this, the text, and we have this. So it's just like it's almost the same weight, equal weight that we have here, That is symmetrical design for you. I mean symmetrical balance for you. So if you understand this, can you please type go on? Just type go on so that we can move on. If not, so I'll know whether to explain again. Alright, thank you. So we now move on to asymmetrical. Now, when talking about asymmetrical balance, it means that objects are, let's say, is not the same. You know that in symmetrical they are almost equal. It's like is what we have on the left side that we have on the right side. When it comes to asymmetrical balance, it's not the same. In fact, there is use of different elements, but the thing is the design does not feel heavier on one side than it is on the other. It's still balanced. So asymmetrical balance looks like it's not balanced when you consider the elements individually, but when you look at the design as a whole, you see that it's still balanced. It's not like it's falling off or it's tilting to one side. I'll show you some examples of that. So this is an asymmetrical design. You see that on this side, let me see if I can get a pen. Okay. Alright. How do I now remove it? Let's see. Eraser. Oh, nice. Eraser on the inside. Okay, so let me change the color of this pen to something bright. Maybe let's use black. And then I'll use a highlighter. Just give me a second. Alright, so when you look at this asymmetrical design, you see that we have this text here, 2021 made with love, but we don't have same here. The best we have here is this S. Then we have this bottom here, red sites reality, but we don't have the same here. Now we have this text here, or we have some elements here, but we don't have it here. Then finally we have this part of the glass here, and okay, we can say we have the equivalents here, but all these other functions we do not have it in all these other parts. Now that is an example of asymmetrical design. But now asymmetrical balance, I don't know why I keep saying design, but now how are we now able to tell, okay, why is it that this design is not unbalanced? Why is it still balanced even though the distribution of elements are not equal? Remember initially we talked about weight visual weight, and we said that visual weight can be a result of size, color, form, and texture. Now look at this. While we have text here, which are lighter elements, on this side we have an image which is heavier. So this image alone is heavier than all this text. In other words, this image balances out this side, the things we have on this side. So that is why this design is still balanced, although the balance is asymmetrical. So let me go again. Symmetrical is when distribution on both sides are equal and they look like almost the same thing. But when we come to asymmetrical, they are in no way equal, but the design is still balanced. So let's move on to some more examples. So this is one of the designs I took from your what's it called now, from the things you guys sent, as an example of a design that still needs some improvement, that is not there yet, right? So let's try. Once we divide this into two, well, it's a bit balanced. It's a bit balanced once you divide it, because we have some elements here and we have some elements here. But once you talk about it in terms of visual weight, you are going to see that this side, let's divide it into two now. You are going to see that this side is heavier than this side. That is, the left side is heavier than the right side, because pictures are heavy. So we have like 3 pictures here, and then we still have another, let's say 4, and then we now have text which is light. But on this side, what we have is mostly text, and then what's it called now, one picture. So left to me, I'm going to say that this design is balanced, yes, in terms of the balance that we are talking about, but the balance is asymmetrical. So once you divide it into two, it doesn't give you the same distribution of weight it has on the left as the same it has on the right. So still on the things you guys sent. So once we divide this into two, now for the sake of, I don't know who is going to be watching this later in the future, I'm just using this for explanation's sake. I'm not saying that these designs are good, they don't look good, but I'm just using them for explanation. So I've divided this one into two, so this can be said to be balanced. Yeah, so my question now is, or let's leave that, I'm going to give you the next one. So this one is, the balance is symmetrical, because once you divide it into two, it's almost the same elements we have on the left side that we have on the right side. So here we have a picture, we have a picture here, we have a picture, we have a picture, we have a picture split in the middle, we have text on this side, we also have text on this side, then we have this down, we have this down. So this is balanced, and the balance is symmetrical. Now let's look at this. You guys should type, is this symmetrical or otherwise? Yeah, type. I'm going to tell you for free that this design is also balanced. So I've already helped you to split it into two. Now your question is this symmetrical balance or asymmetrical, or is it asymmetrical? I don't know. So which one is it? Are you guys still there? I'm waiting for you to type. What kind of balance do we have here? is it symmetrical or asymmetrical? And can we be fast to that because we don't have time and we're still on the first principle. Alright, I've seen a I've seen a response. It is symmetrical, yeah, that's right. Because of there's even distribution, right? So we have the text here which is almost equal to this, and then we have a picture here which is almost equal to this. So yes, it is symmetrical. Moving on. How about this one? Let me divide it for you. I think I need another color for my highlighter. Let me use yellow. So yeah, the design by the left, is it symmetrical or asymmetrical? I'm waiting. No, I said the design by the left, is it symmetrical or asymmetrical? Once you divide it's balanced, yeah, but is the balance symmetrical or asymmetrical? Grace, are you still with us? I hope you are following. Okay, you are right. So it is symmetrical. Now let's look at this one by the right. I know you'll be tempted to say that this one is you might be tempted to say that this one is asymmetrical, but that's what I want to talk first. This is symmetrical because once you divide it, this is the waiting room that we have here, and every other element there balances out the face of the lady, and then this text we have at the bottom balances out the body of the lady and her name. So this is symmetrical balance. Now remember, you can see that we have so much text, but then we just have one picture. Remember I told you that when we talk about visual weight, a picture is heavier than text. So it is possible that one picture can cancel out or can balance out a lot of text. Let's move on. I would have liked us to go through all these ones, but I think you get the idea now. Maybe I'll just send these ones to the group so that you tell me what kind of balance you see there. Okay, yeah. Let me talk about one here. Look at these three. This picture of a tree by the right. Now, this one should be a no-brainer. The kind of balance we have here, it's balanced. It's not unbalanced. It's balanced. The image is balanced. But the kind of balance we have here is, once you divide this by the center, where is my letter not strong again? Use black. Yeah. So once you divide it by the center, you can see that is almost what we have here. That we have here. In fact, it is not even almost, because it's just a reflection. What we have up, we see the reflection of what we have up in the water that is down. I'll explain more on this on the group. I have to move on because of time. Let's keep going. But look at this movie poster. You just divide it into two. You can see that it's symmetrically balanced. Let's move on. Same as the movie by the left, symmetrically balanced. Now this one, what do you say about this one? I would have called this one balanced, and it should be symmetrical. Because here, although we have so much text here, this image we have here balances it out. But where the issue is now coming in is we now have some more text here, which is now making this side way heavier than this. So I'll go with this is asymmetrical. The design is not looking faulty, it's balanced, just that it's asymmetrical. So here's another example of asymmetrical balance. Once you divide this one here, you see that we have more elements here than we have on the left side, but still it's balanced. This one is symmetrical, this one is symmetrical. So let's move on. Another element, we're talking about principle of design as balance. Another one is unity. Unity refers to how the individual elements in a design come together to form one thing. So once you look at this thing, you won't see 5 boxes initially. What you are going to see is an X, or for some people they might see like a square that has something in the middle. So basically what unity is all about is how all the individual elements in a design come together to create one main concept. How the little elements come together to achieve one bigger concept. So you are not seeing the individual elements, you are seeing a bigger picture. So this has to do with the harmony between elements. This could be using similar colors, fonts, grouping. Let me go back to my pointer. Yes, so we have fonts, grouping, colors, spacing, or placing them within a boundary. A good rule of thumb is to place an element in your design only if it enhances the message. Ask yourself what the element is adding to the composition. So once you look at this now, what we are trying to say here is unity. You can achieve unity by using the same color for some things. Once you use the same color for some things, the human eye detects it as similar, so automatically the human eye pairs it. Same way when we look at things that are in close proximity. That is why I don't know if you can relate, but there are times that when you hang out with someone for so long, especially maybe if you're a guy and you hang out with a lady so much, before you know it, people will start calling you people husband and wife. Why? Because of the proximity, they are now starting to pair the two of you together. So they are now starting to see two of you together. The same thing, the human eye, that's how it does. It loves to group things. It loves order above chaos. So it will like to group things together, things that are similar, to show that okay, these things are together. When you look at this now, like I've talked about colors, fonts can be used to group things together and achieve unity, spacing or where they are placed. So you look at the design by the right, you can see that you don't see stop individually and you see ocean individually and you see plastic individually and you see pollution individually. No, but because they are within a boundary and they share close proximity, you are going to see them all together. So you are seeing stop ocean plastic pollution as one element. That's unity for you, bringing different elements together and uniting them. So we move on. Looking at this design still, you see that when you see it, automatically your eye divides design into two. So we have the sky, which is this upper part, and we have the river, which is this lower part. Whereas in the river we have different elements. We have the water, we have the fish, we have the bottles, we have the plastic, we have the straw and all. But your eye just groups everything together as water, while we have the top parts as the sky. So now we have emphasis. Emphasis in design is used to, that while unity plans to put things together, emphasis hopes to make something stand out. And you can achieve emphasis through many elements, including color. So once you look at this thing now, you are no longer, unlike unity, you are where you are pairing them together. In this one, you are almost pairing them together, but then you see this box by the bottom right and you are now emphasizing it, it's now catching your attention because it's standing out from the rest. So that's emphasis. So if there is a message in your design that you want people to, pay attention to, you can use emphasis to emphasize that element. So it could be a text, it could be a picture, you can use something to emphasize it to make it stand out. That's why people use drop shadow sometimes, that's why they use stroke outlines, they use different things so that this thing draws attention. Moving on. So like I said, emphasis is used to get attention and make people see what you want them to see. Another principle of design, I think we've talked about three now. We've talked about balance, we've talked about unity, we've talked about emphasis. Another one is repetition. Repetition, the human eye loves repetition. You can see that repetition is also one of the ways you achieve unity. Now you are seeing this thing as a long rectangle and not as 12 different circles. So you are seeing them, your eyes is already grouping them together. It's a repetition of circles. So the human brain loves it when things are repeated. It makes life easy. It makes things easy. So when you look at your fan, you are looking at it as a fan. Is unless you want to look at it in detail that you now start looking at it as, okay, maybe 3 blades or 4 blades in the fan. But at first look, you are looking at everything together because they are close, and then there's repetition of those blades. So we use repetition in patterns and texture. This is a pattern. So you can see the repetition of elements, the paw, the wavy line, the face of a dog, or the sketch of a dog, or the line art of a dog, whatever you want to call it, the bone, everything is repeated. So repetition is not restricted to patterns and texture alone. We are going to get to that. So now we move on to contrast. Contrast is used to show the difference between two elements. So for instance here now, you can see that there is contrast. There are two ways they showed the three ways they showed the contrast here. The first one is they are showing the difference between a circle and a square. That's contrast, using different shapes. Another thing they use to show contrast is color. Why one is yellow, the other is blue. And the last thing they use to show contrast is size. The circle is smaller while the square is way bigger. So like I said, contrast refers to clear difference between two or more elements in your design. It can be achieved using color, size, form, texture. So you can see that you can just use elements of design to achieve any principle of design you want. By elements of design, I mean color, texture, form, size, typography, and so on and so forth. So you see in this first instance, there are two boxes. Size was used to show contrast by making one smaller than the other, and then color was also used to show contrast. In this second instance, you see that size and specifically height is used to show contrast. One is the height of the rectangle on top is smaller while the one below is much more. Then we have that of shape. We have a circle here while we have a rectangle beside it. And then we have form or texture. So we have texture. There's a texture to this rectangle making it heavier than this circle. We have movement. Now as a designer, remember you are communicating and there are so many elements in a design. So you have to guide your viewer, the person looking at your design. You have to guide the person. This is what I want you to see first. After this, after this. So that's movement. You are moving them from one point in your design to another. Now movement has to do with how our eyes move through a design. This can be achieved using any of the elements of design, including emphasis, lines, and so on. Now looking at the design we have on the screen, You can see movement. They achieve this using lines. Look at the race tracks, there are lines, so they are showing you movement starting from this point here and then coming forward till you get to this point. And using this runner also, you can predict through the use of movement and through the lines that the designer has used as a guide. You can predict that this guy is running and is going to come and is going to come towards him. We also have another one here, movement. So the first thing you are likely to see here is the 1984, but then you now see the lights point you down to this man down here. So the designer has moved you or your eyes the direction he wants you to go to notice the silhouette down there. So we have reading. Reading has to do with the flow in a design, just like reading in music. So it has to do with implying movements through the use of regular spacing or irregular spacing between elements. So for instance, now we see movements here also, right? We also have a reading. There's a regular spacing between these red lines. You can also see it on the card too. Red, white, red, yeah. And here we have irregular spacing, but then we can still detect movements here. We can still detect movements here. For instance, when you look at this thing very well, you can tell that okay, this impact hit this text here and caused an impact. And you can see the text flying about to show that there was an impact, and they are flying about. So we now go to scale. Scale just refers to size. So when we talk about scale, we are talking about size. You can see these two rectangles. One is smaller than the other. These are some of the principles that guide the way we design or the way we use elements in design. Now look at this, the size of these elements. The text, if you can see the text there, Bruce, is way bigger than the race car and the man standing there. It's almost 8:30 already. Then we have variety. This is the last one. So when we talk about variety in design, we are talking about difference. You know that we've been talking about unity and how to make everything come together. By variety, we use it to make things stand out, just like emphasis. So in variety, we create a flow and then disrupt that flow. But you have to first of all understand how to create a flow before you talk about disrupting the flow. So this is an example of variety. Although I think there's too much variety here, but it's still it. So you see that even the text, the paragraph does not follow the same way all through. This one is pointing top right, yeah. This one is pointing top left. This one is pointing bottom right, and everything. There's just variety, and everything is going the way. So there is hardly any unity in this design. Now, before you start designing, there are some questions you should ask. Number one is, what is the concept or message that we are looking at? What is the concept? So remember, I told you, don't just rush to start putting elements in your design. Hey, let's make it fine. Let's put motion blur. Let's use glass isomorphism. Let's use drop shadow. Let's use stroke and everything. No, all you should ask first is, what is the concept? What's the message that is being passed across or is intended to be passed across? That's what determines where you go from there. Then, is there a brand style guide or existing assets? Now, a brand style guide is a document that every brand should have that contains their style. So it should contain their fonts, their colors, their use of the way their logo is used, and everything concerning the brand. It should be in the style guide. So once once they give you a design, you first of all ask, or once they give you a task to design, you first of all ask them, is there a style guide? So that you don't go and design something that is not using their color or using their style. So it's now their style guide that will guide your design decisions. Are there specs or guidelines? Are there specifications? That's what we mean by specs. Are there specifications? Okay, this must be this way, this must be this way, still in relation to their standard and assets. Now you also ask yourself, where is this design going to be used? Is it going to be used on screen or on print? If it's going to be used on screen, then you know that okay, you are designing using RGB color scale. But if it's going to be print, you know that it's going to be CMYK. So all these things are going to guide you. Now by RGB, we mean red, green, blue. That's the color scheme that is used for screens, so for phone, laptop, television, and the rest. Why CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and K stands for black here. Yeah. So it's used for print. So once you are designing for something that will be printed, you go with CMYK. Is there a word count you need to adhere to? Do these colors vibrate? Is my composition easy to understand? To test if your composition is easy to understand, you can show the design to some other people and ask them that, is it soft on the eye? Is it easy to interpret? Does it give them issues? How does the composition, image, feature, respond or look on all devices or viewports? Sometimes when I finish designing on my laptop, I send to my phone, I reduce the brightness on my phone, I increase it to see exactly how the design looks. Or sometimes colors change depending on how many million pixels you have, pixels of colors you have on your laptop and then on your phone screen. Colors can change, so you make something one color on your laptop, and when you change it to, when you send it to your phone, you see that it's either a bit saturated or a little bit desaturated depending on how much pixels or million pixels of colors you have on your screen. So what does the user experience look like? What's the main point of conversion? And do these colors, fonts, graphics help guide the user to achieve the purpose? So these are the principles of design that we are going to be looking at. By next week, we are going to move on to elements of design. But then we have a class on Friday. So on that Friday, we are going to be looking at all the flyers and that you guys have done, the replication flyers. I'm going to touch them and I'm going to explain how they can be better improved and how they can be made better. So before I give room for questions, since you are on the call, Grace says she's having network issues. So since you are on the call, let me quickly look at the one you did. Okay, maybe I'll just send you a voice note. I don't think I have it. I do not have it here. I'll just send you a voice note explaining how you can improve it or what you can do better. Let me see if I can quickly send it. Let me see that your design directly. And you've not sent in today's zone, no? Alright. Okay, so I've sent your own to my system here. Let me open it and see what we have. think I have to send the initial one to so that I can compare. Let me look for that one. But while we are waiting for it, let me see. Okay, so now I have it on my phone. I don't know why it's not sending. Let me try one more time. Yeah, so good. Solve one problem, another problem emerges. Okay, alright, so let's look at the two. Your one is the one by the left, while the original one is by the right. So yeah, well done. Like I said on the group, you did a really nice. Is this yours? Yeah, this is yours now. Okay, so you did a really nice job. I told you that you can always switch, change pictures if you can't find the exact pictures. And I really like the way you trimmed this hair. It's very professional and it's neat. So, eh, we thank God, it's still part of it. So now, some of the issues I have is number one, you did not have the parts with the. Let me move this up. His name, this brush stroke. So you don't have that brush stroke where the name is. You don't have it in your own. Okay, you got the gradient for the access to training is free, but not fully. Once you look at their own, it goes from red completely to orange. But I don't know if it's my screen, but I think your orange only starts at this point instead of somewhere in the middle. So you have to make your gradient linear and adjust the angle. Another thing is there's this other box here which you don't have on your own, and this part, and theirs has a shadow. Well, you don't have yours, so you can't even have shadow there. Now you also put gradients on the phone number, whereas theirs there is no gradients on the phone number, it's purely red. Now you mixed, it looks like you mixed fonts here. I'm not sure it's the same font that you used all through. How to generate quality leads with videos, how to sell, and all. Theirs is the same. Be consistent with your font. I like what you did there. You decided to use a rectangle instead of the underline. It's being creative, yeah. I think that can be allowed. Now your alignment, if you check, you see that your first bullet point, how to generate quality leads, is not on the same alignment as how to sell out and how you can earn extra 100k. See that this how to generate quality leads shifted inside. unlike others. So align everything, let them be on the same alignment. This part is cool, just that there's a shadow, there's a drop shadow on these their videos. If you look at it very well, you see the drop shadow, you don't have the drop shadow. And finally, this line, this circle here, you decided to create your own. There's a way to create this. You can use pencil tool and just sketch it and just draw a circle and then put in your text. Now for smartphone users, yeah, pencil on Photoshop. Now for smartphone users is way smaller while your own is bigger. But overall you did a really nice job. Just work on these things. Now I told you that for you the only thing left for you is just a little, corrections here and there. You get. So these little things, these minor things, that things that you should start paying attention to. So I think that's all, and I would like to end the class for tonight here. Do you have any questions? All right. So well done. Please go back to your replication task and replicate today's design. Tomorrow I'll send another one. Then by Friday, what we'll do on Friday is just to go through all the replications that we did. Then if I have the chance, I think I will host a Photoshop class for those that are not conversant with Photoshop yet. So thank you so much for being around. I'll try to work on this recording and make it available for you to go over, or for those that were not able to join to go over. See you on Friday.